Hello and welcome to Tight Lines. The opening day of the river season came and went, and most of us out there celebrating it had a great time, as you'll see in a minute in my case. There's absolutely no doubt that my guest this week was out there too. Ray Walton is one of the all-time barbel fishing greats and has developed his own techniques for catching them, as well as the necessary tackle. We're discussing all that and a lot more in the hour ahead. I was at one of my favourite spots at the crack of dawn on the glorious 16th. You can see my attempt to mark the special day in style on the River Colne in Uxbridge. What a superb way to usher in the new season. On a very different tack, Fiona Armstrong tries her hand at the art of fly fishing for pike. She spent a day with a local guide on the spectacular Dermot water in the Lake District to learn what it was all about. And we're taking a different approach to fishery focus this week. As well as putting the spotlight on specific venues, I'll be taking a more general view of conditions and tactics to help you catch on a variety of waters. Ray, welcome to the bothy. Stop messing about with your plasticine. We'll have plenty of time to mess about with that later on. That's fine. So, how you been?
I've been fine, actually, yeah. Went out early in the season, have a look around, see where people were catching and that. And,
not fishing yourself? How could you stay away?
It's one of the things, you know, the older you get, you sort of relax. I like enjoying fishing that, you know. Not sort of like jumping up at 6 o'clock in the morning, running down the fishery, like we used to do.
Yeah.
Queuing up at the gate, 7 o'clock, half past 7.
I remember that very well, yeah.
Punch-ups on the bank, if you know what I mean.
I'll tell you what I do remember. I remember going back a long time when you were working for the Mail and you were coming down on the banks where we were fishing and taking our pictures. Yeah. That's a long time ago. You've moved on a long way since then.
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, I've been, you know, Bristol Haven, I've been fishing, and the Great Ooze, back to the Royal. I fished the Royal right the way through the 70s and into the 80s. Did a big study there for 6 years. And basically back there, in the last couple of years, sort of just seeing what fish are still there, you know, and recapturing the same fish.
And concentrating on improving your techniques and honing the stuff. And you've really got this, I mean, we were talking a lot more about the rolling meat and the way you do it later on, but yeah, you've really got that down to a fine art, really.
Yeah, basically, the way it came about was accidental, and all I've done ever since, because it was so successful in, you know, using the feeder at first, rolling the feeder. Then I transferred it over to the luncheon meat, and I haven't looked back.
Fantastic. We'll be looking forward to that in a minute. Now, June the 16th is a truly special day in the diary of all river anglers. Like many all over the country, I marked the big occasion with an early morning session at one of my favourite locations. I really couldn't have asked for a more perfect start. This is the magic moment we've all been waiting for 3 months. It's 4:40 on June the 16th. This is the River Colne. The sun is somewhere behind me and it's being lazy. It's just coming up over the horizon. The mist is rising off the river and I can't wait to chuck in. I'm not going to go into the semantics of the rig or the bait or anything, because all I want to do is get it in the river and see if I can get a bite. Here we go. Well, the first cast worked. I've got a fish. I don't think it's a barbel. I think it's a chub. It's trying its best to get in the tree on the other bank. I've been in the water maybe a minute of the season and the fish is on it. It might be a barbel actually, because it's heading upstream now with some power, and the chub don't normally do that. There's a lot of weed in this swim which you can't see yet. There it is. Oh, it's a chub. It's not a bad way to start the season either, I tell you. Oh, my giddy aunt, look at that. That is a fantastic fish. Just slide the hook out. That's not a bad way to kick it all off, is it? On the bank for 2 minutes and we've got a fish. That was quite an unusual bite, really. The first thing that happened, the tip shook like it was a line bite, and then it slowly pulled round like it was in some weed, and then it just thumped. And it was a chub. I didn't think it was a barbel when I first struggled out his famous last words, because when it started to run upstream I thought it might have been a barbel. But the barbel normally try and steal your rod, and in case of striking, instead of striking, it's more a case of rescuing your rod. But we might get a barbel. It's early in the year, but it does feel autumnal. I mean, the temperature last night went down to single figures. It was about 7 or 8 degrees. The water actually feels warm, the fish felt warm, and you can see the steam rising off. That's the second fish of the season, and that's a slightly healthier looking chub, I think. I look too happy to be a specimen hunter, don't I? It's £4.10. Second fish of the season. I've been on the riverbank 45 minutes. Let's hope 2008-9 season carries on like this. Oh, you beauty. Now it's got a bit lighter and we can see what's happening. I'll show you my rig. It might look a bit heavy, and it's heavy because when I put the bait in, I want it to stay there. There's a lot of weed in the river, and what I don't want to do is for the current to roll the bait round into the weed. Right, this is the rig. There's £8 main line. There's a running lead on the line, and I've protected the swivel with a piece of tube. It's a heavy lead because I don't want it to move around. The hook length is £10. There's a size 10 hook that's on a bit of shrink tube to kick it off at an angle, and a 15mm halibut pellet, which I'm going to wrap in a piece of boilie paste. Oh, that hit gravel. That hit gravel, that's for sure. Well, the hectic action of the first 45 minutes has dissipated, and I thought it would, to be honest. In fact, I'm deeply indebted to the river for allowing me to catch anything. The old traffic started now on the M25. You can hear it buzzing away. The sun's up, although it's still cold in this little shaded nook I'm in. I'm going to wait until everybody's at work, and then I'm going to go home whether I catch another fish or not. Well, it's about 9:30. I think all the mice are now on their treadmill in the offices and things like that, and I've had a great morning. My boilies, paste and pellets are starting to look ever more attractive. My stomach thinks its throat's been cut, so it's time to go and have some breakfast and then spend the rest of the day tapping keys on my computer. Really enjoyed myself, and I've had 2 fantastic chub. What a way to start the season. Let's go home. See, that's what you've missed by not being on the riverbank at 20 to 5 in the morning. It was fantastic, and I was home indoors to do what amounted to a full day's work afterwards.
I've been there, done it, and got the T-shirt.
But you told me you fished the Colne.
I have in the early days, yeah. We used to fish around Denham and Uxbridge, around that area. A lot on the Boyer stretch, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was quite close to London, straight up the A40.
A40. What's incredible about that, that's the Gerrard's Cross and Uxbridge bit. Right. And it's actually that the river flows around an industrial estate, and you look out, there's beautiful grass and grazing kingfishers, there's kestrels hunting, and it's brilliant. Behind you, it's factories and offices, and behind locked gates, it's a lovely secure venue. Yeah. But it's just a brilliant place to go and sort of half hour from the centre of London.
Yeah. Did you expect to catch barbel there?
I hope to catch him. I've caught him out in that swim before. I sat Jimmy Bullard wanted to catch a barbel. He never caught one. I sat him there. He caught one £8.10. But there was a lot more water in the river, and it was March.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping to catch one. Yeah.
Excellent.
I failed. But
You have to keep going back at 5:30 in the morning.
Well, no, I'll go a bit later now. I'll go in the evening because I think that's better time for the barbel.
It
But
is, actually.
The chub are spectacular. There's some big chub in the river, and a 410 chub. I mean, that's even though we now see 7s and 8s caught regularly, a 410 still for a little tiny river like that, still an appreciable fish.
Yeah, they're getting bigger everywhere. I mean, if the bait still goes in, they're going to put on weight.
Yeah, exactly right. Like me, they need something to eat from time to time. We're going to take a little break now, but there's much to discuss when we get back. Ray will be talking about his passion for barbel, and there'll be some great tips on tackle and tactics. We're back soon. It's true though, mate, isn't it? A 410 chub still a Welcome back to Tight Lines, where to mark the start of the river course fishing season, I've been joined by Barbel ace Ray Walton. And if you wonder what he's been doing when he's not been paying full attention to what I've been saying, look, he's been playing with one of his famous plasticine weights, and he's turned it into a perfect little miniature barbel. Now, you've got a theory about these when you're fishing with plasticine, haven't you?
Yeah, all these little fish under the water are sort of like, when you're getting these little taps, that's what they're doing. They're actually mucking about and modelling your plasticine little men.
They're not lying, but they've got their little fins out and they're making shapes of blokes with long hair and little miniature beards.
Yes, they are.
Fantastic.
You. That's what they were doing on the River Colne.
That's probably what they were. Instead of taking my pellets and boilies, we'll be speaking about baits later on. But first of all, we mentioned plasticine. It's an integral part of your rig, and I've got to say that of all the anglers that I've worked with over the years, for simplicity of rig, yours takes some beating.
It was. I started using plasticine in 1991. When I was fishing the River Way, and there was a rocky weir, and when you was using lead bombs, you were actually getting caught in the rocks, and we actually caught a couple of fish that had hooks in their mouths, and the weight's still hanging off, and basically the rocks, you know, were actually trapping the thing, and the fish were coming and picking the bait up afterwards. You with me?
Yeah.
And so really I didn't want to fish it like that anymore, so you needed something to pull off the line, and originally I wanted, at that time there was tungsten putty, what you could get, but that disappeared.
And cost a fortune, I would have
yeah.
But let's just have a look. We'll get to the plasticine in a second.
Okay.
Let's have a look at the basic rig. Now, this is connected to your rod, which is over there. I'm going to pull it off the wall in a minute, but that's one of the hooks you actually use. Now, there's the hook. You can just see the hook, the point, and the barb and everything there. And this is...
that underneath that is heavy metal. It's tungsten putty. Yeah, just a small bit round around the shank.
Let's have a look. We've got one here.
Yeah.
This is the classic one we prepared earlier. Look.
Yeah, you just mould it round the shank so you get a sort of an oval shape. Yeah. And then you put a bit of shrink tube over the top. Yeah. And just heat it up and seal it from both ends. That allows, simply because you have to seal it because the luncheon meat grease actually dilutes with the heavy metal. And softens it right down.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I wonder why you bothered with shrink tube, because the old tungsten putty itself would stay there. Now then, you've got no hook lengths, no swivels, no anything.
No, basically you can use that hook on its own because it's weighted. You bury that in the bait itself, and therefore, instead of actually having any weight on your line, you use the hook as the total weight, especially in low flow conditions. Because
what you actually want to do is you fish with a big lump of luncheon meat and you roll it along the riverbed.
Yeah, I'm trying to present the bait as natural as possible.
As if it were rolling. When luncheon meat rolls down rivers every day, doesn't it?
It does. And basically, if you've got weight on the line, and you've only got low flows, you can get snagged up too many times, and the presentation is not perfect and can spook the fish.
But you look at that, I mean, you don't make it into a lovely round ball and like a bomb shape. You leave it like that because you want it to look like...
a piece of gravel.
A bit of gravel. See those lines side by side, you wouldn't tell which was a gravel and which was a plasticine.
And like I say, you can fish that rolling or you can fish it static. It doesn't matter.
But you've got other tricks as well, because if you want tiny bit more weight or a bit more camouflage, you've caught me already, look.
There you go.
You just get your bit of plasticine,
Yep.
roll it in some sand,
Yep, that's the first one. That will double the weight of it. You've got to make sure you don't put too much in, because the plasticine will start breaking up.
Yeah, harden up too much.
Yeah, the plasticine is non-toxic as well.
Yeah, oh, I see. But then you can even, like you've done here.
Yeah, if you want even more weight. Yeah, mainly I put stones in when I'm fishing close in, and I want to get the bait down very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Simply because the plasticine is not as dense as lead,
yeah,
and therefore it won't drop as quickly. So if you want an accurate place to drop it, if you know you've got a spot where that fish is going to pick the bait up from, you need heavier weight to get it in that position. Otherwise, the current will wash it away.
You don't just doesn't just happen overnight, has it? You put a lot of thought into this.
See, the other thing is, going onto the line, with the braid.
Let's have a look here.
Again, the braid, it might sound a lot. It's £30 breaking strain, but it's still only the equivalent of £8 the diameter of £8 mono. But it's much more powerful. When you get to, there's no stretch in it.
Yeah.
And also, therefore, it's very, very sensitive if you touch lead in a hold in the rod.
Yeah.
And feeling for bites through the line or the rod itself.
Yeah.
Right? It transmit the bites back quicker.
And also, because you're not using a hook length, you don't want to break off on anything. And with that breaking strain, you're going to get it out of any kind of weed, most snags, and you're not going to leave any nasty stuff in the river. That's brilliant. Now, I've got a question you could probably answer. Well, you can answer, definitely. Could you ask Ray if he ever rolls a large pellet instead of meat?
No. I know all my mates do, and it works quite well, except that, because they actually banned the pellet on the net. But I've always want the hook buried in the bait itself, because there is an element of snagging the hook on the outside of the bait itself.
And with a banded pellet, the hook's exposed and can catch on a little tiny bit of stream of weed or anything.
What you really need is paste, right? Or you need a 24mm pellet a soft pellet.
Yes.
Where you can actually put it straight in, and then when you strike it will come out, just like it does the lunch meat. They've got into the habit of, because so much pellet goes in, a lot of it is being washed downstream, and it is very, very successful.
Do you use different kinds of meat for different conditions? I know that might sound a daft question to some people, but match anglers will. They sometimes want one that's got a higher fat content so it will sink slower, or they want one with no fat content. I know people even use the sort of halal and kosher types of meat because of the different way they're constructed. Just chicken and beef and all sorts you can buy.
Well, don't use garlic, mate.
No, I know you don't.
I don't like garlic. Right? Should be banned from the riverbanks.
You are a vampire. I've come to that conclusion, but related to one.
You could be. There's a lot around me, I'll tell you.
That's what you get.
No, basically, on the meat side of it, the spam has been my favourite for a long time, because it is a chopped ham and pork and not straight spam, which is a different consistency. The colder the weather, you need a type of spam or lunch meat where it breaks up quickly when you strike and the hook pulls through. Because,
of course, the colder the water, the firmer it will make it. Like the old days with cheese paste, I used to use cheese paste on the lee. And in the winter time, you had to make it really soft and use like the processed cheese. Because if you use a lump of old cheddar, bit of mousetrap, the hook would never come out of it.
No.
And you don't want a hair rig because you don't want the hook exposed. It's a holistic approach you've got here.
Well,
right?
when we're actually rolling the baits, you're actually fishing a slack line. So you need, with that element of slack line, you need something, when you strike, with the braid, it's instant. With mono, it's a delayed reaction of a slight elasticated
the
stretch.
Absorption,
So therefore, on the braid, it's more direct. So when you strike, by having that extra bit of line there, you need that hook to come out, right, and pick up that slack quickly and penetrate the hook into the fish's mouth.
You've sort of answered this question a bit. It's from Dave in Ellesmere Port. He's asked you to explain your approach. He calls it trundling, bouncing a bait along the bottom of the river. He's tried it on the River Dove, but doesn't feel he's doing it correctly. He wants to know what sort of reel you use, and that's a no-brainer because your email address is Rolling Pin Boy, and that's because you've got the patented Ray Walton rolling pin, and it's a big centre pin. But the trick of it is, it's like the old Alvey sidecast, isn't it?
It is.
Let's see if we can pick it up without knocking everything to bits and show us.
Let's have a look. We'll bring it all across.
Now, let's take the rod off you there. I think you can just about turn. That's it. We've done it. There you go.
Yeah, so basically...
That's your reel.
Yeah. So what you do, you press the button at the back, the reel turns around the front.
There you go.
And you cast off the front, and just turn the reel. Basically, what you've got
Another
there,
reason for not using mono, which would twist and twist and twist and
yes,
twist.
yeah, with braid, yeah, that's quite important, because a lot of people who use centre pins always, you know, when we first actually brought the reels out, said that you're going to get too much line twist.
You've got a fly reel drag as well, because it's actually got more resistance on the back wind than it has on the forward wind.
Well, that's why you can then sort of static fish with it.
Yeah.
It's very, very versatile, where that would act as an audible alarm.
And there's your, it's off, that's your drag off.
Quite a lot of barbel anglers use centre pins just for static fishing.
Yeah,
They don't use them for trotting.
But
really, what you've got there, the benefits of the casting ability of a fixed ball reel, and the enjoyment and control playing a fish on a centre pin.
Thumb pressure, the thumb pressure, which is when you're playing a fish, it's everything. You feel it through your thumb,
you can
especially with braid.
Yeah,
that's lovely. I'm going to have a day with you. We've already spoken about me having a day with you, because I want to see this rod room, and I want to revisit the Royalty. Not been there for over 30 years, and I love my time down there so much. And the barbel then were much smaller, and a 10-pounder was a fish of a lifetime. And now you were saying 1 in 3.
Yeah, the double ratio. When we fished it in the 80s, it was 1 in 100. But now it's actually 1 in 3 fish.
Amazing.
You know, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of small fish coming through, right? And that's happened in the last 6-7 years, where, you know, the actual quantity of barbel in the population barbel is increasing. Yeah. And probably in 3, 4, 5 years' time, it will be back like it was in the 80s. Yeah. Maybe the older doubles, you know, might drop back a bit and the quantity will take over. Not quite sure.
Well, the river's evolving, and rivers are living things, and there's all sorts of things going. You mentioned there's some great big dace. Well, there were big dace when I was fishing it in the 60s. The dace fishing was spectacular. It was the place to go for quality roach. It held the pike record for a long. The river held the pike record for a long, long time. It is a wonderful river, and it's something I've missed. I would have to relive my youth. I think the maggots are a bit dear, and I probably won't be able to stay in number 9 Avon buildings for £1.17 and 6 a week, will I?
I'm sure
probably
David's
not.
Tackle will give you a discount. And then if you bring an old tin of Smith's crisps, which is what they used to do them on.
Now, if you've got a question for me, my guests here on the show, whatever the subject, get them in on an email to tightlines@skysports.com. Even those that don't make it onto the programme all get read, and if necessary, we'll get an answer. Next week, we're talking fly fishing, and I'll be joined by Hugh Morgan, a top angler, tutor and former world fly casting champion. We want to help you, so get your questions in. OK, we'll take another breather now. When we get back, we'll be looking at some great venues for you to try and discussing the best methods to use. We're back in a couple of minutes. The old rolling. Welcome back to Tight Lines, where me and my guest Ray Walton have been talking about river fishing and some of the best tactics for this time of year. Now let's think about the weekend ahead. We've got unseasonably low pressure. It's likely to be quite windy over the weekend, especially Saturday, and there could be some torrential rain in some parts of the country. Getting it already today. That's going to move from the southwest up the country through.
Perfect.
It's going to be perfect, mate, for you. Barbel fishing. If you're going on a river, the barbel fishing is going to be perfect, mate. No mistake about that. We need a drop of water in the rivers at this time of year to catch the fish. On one river that's benefiting from the water it's had recently is the Thames. It started last week. Before the season started, I thought it was just going to be too much, but it's ended up absolutely spot on, and people out at the start of the season, right on the lower Thames, right up from sort of the Surrey, the county of Surrey, right up through Oxfordshire. There's been massive bags of bream, huge, over £100 bags of bream in many instances. Amazing. The occasional barbel and some outstanding chub, quite unusual for this time of year to get the chub. Of course, the flow's there. They're catching on the stick float. The ground bait feeder for bream obviously is king. Worm and caster on some sections, but the pellet is still catching a lot of fish in a lot of areas. Cast, hemp, maggot, worm, the normal candidates for bream, but for the chub, stick float, maggot and caster, you can't beat it. And another river, one of your old stamping grounds, you mentioned the Great Ouse earlier, Ray. The Great Ouse around Bedfordshire, above Bedford, that bit of river, fishing its head off for chub. Again, £100 catches of chub on the maggot and caster this week. The occasional barbel, nowhere near the numbers of barbel we're expecting, but of course we're talking about barbel numbers dwindling on the river. And the odd big bream, there's still some of those around.
Do you think the fish have spawned this year, the barbel and the chub, or are they?
I think the chub have spawned. I think the reason why probably I didn't catch a barbel on the Colne and why a lot of people will miss out fishing for barbel this weekend is that they probably haven't spawned yet, and they're moving up to the fast water now, and if you find them, they'll probably be a big shoal of them, and I'm not all that happy finding and exploiting those big shoals. I'm you know, it's one thing I like to maintain the closed season for.
Yeah, it's just the water temperatures don't seem to have gone as high as, you know, with the increased flow, it also keeps the water a bit cooler.
Exactly. Now I think the chub have done it. I know the bream have done it, and I think the barbel are about to do it. And when they've done it, then there'll be some spectacular catches. Yeah. There's been spectacular catches on a lot of commercial fisheries as well. One that's fishing especially well is Bradshaw Hall in the northwest of England near Bolton in Lancashire, and it's a good mixed fishery because they've got match type lakes, specimen type lakes, £30 carp in some of the lakes. It's incredible, and double figure tench, £7 chub. Now on the match lakes and the people that are pleasure fishing, there's not much to beat the pellet waggler. Fishing a banded pellet anywhere from a foot to 2 feet deep, loose feeding. The trick is fishing the pellet waggler. Don't feed too much. Don't be one of these that blast pellets at the float till it goes under. They'll come up, fish will come up too high. You'll get line bites and foul lookers. You don't want that. 1 or 2 pellets at a time, very regularly. You can fish a method feeder too and fish that underneath the pellet waggler until the fish get there. And for the bigger fish, obviously the normal suspects again, boilies are the king, fished on normal sort of semi-fixed bolt rigs. That's the way to catch them. Now, a lot of people still love their fly fishing. Although the river season started, there's no doubt that it's peak time on some of the reservoirs. And if anybody can find somewhere more beautiful than Ravensthorpe, I'll give them a large sum of money. It's a beautiful place to fish, stocked with quality rainbow trout, and unlike a lot of fisheries, it's catch and release. 20 quid ticket gives you 2 fish to keep, and then catch and release. And a floating line, long leader, a lovely slow retrieve, and really classic fly fishing on what is, as I say, an outstandingly beautiful river, beautiful reservoir. I can show you some of the flies actually. I bought my fly box in because the dial back is producing a lot of fish, as it has been for some time. And I don't know if you know what dial back translates to from the Welsh. It's little devil. And there you go, there's that little devil. Bit of peacock herl around there. So this one's got a red head. They don't necessarily have to have a red head, but it's a little sight point for the fish to go at. And of course, this time of the year, when I was on the Colne the other day, there were damsels everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Now that's an adult, mature damsel. You'd fish that dry on the surface. It's a little bit early for that yet. And you can see, if you've ever seen a damsel fly, you know they look just like that when they're flying around. But the nymphs, before they rise to the surface and fly away, are vicious looking creatures, and that imitates one. This has got a bit of holographic material in it and a marabou tail, and in the water that tightens right up. I'll just show you with a bit of spit. It tightens up like that and undulates through the water, just like the darter. That's another name from the darter. And trout absolutely adore those. It's sort of a cross between...
You'll catch a lot of coarse fish on them as well, wouldn't you?
I'm sure you will as well, because after all said and done, we were out the other week with Andy Lush at Arlington, and he caught 2 bream, funny enough, on a cruncher, which I haven't got here, but the other fly that's working at Ravensthorpe and on any other reservoir or still water is that's a gold-ribbed hare's ear, and that's a heavily palmered, this particular one, and it's the straggly ends. The rougher you can make these nymphs, the better, because they displace a bit more water. That attracts the fish, and they just can't resist it. And luckily we haven't got perfect eyesight underwater, because some days I've been to places like Chalk Springs where it's exceptionally clear, and you can see like a shoal of fish following these, and none of them have a go. So that's if you're out fly fishing this weekend. There's some great patterns for you to try, and if you're going to Ravensthorpe, you will definitely have a good day. Last of all, we mustn't forget sea fishing, and of course the sea fish is the bass. Everybody wants to catch bass, and Jason at Galston Tackle Centre, I've not spoken to for ages, but Jason tells me they're catching some exceptional bass there from the shore and from the boats, but all the boats are fishing really close in, within 400 or 500 yards of the shore. Their run of cod is just about over now. They've had a great run of cod this winter, right the way through to the beginning of June. But the bass fishing now is outstanding. There's been some double figure fish, lots of fish in the 5 to 6 pound mark. And Jason said they're catching a lot of fish on spinners. Now, you can use a spinner for bass, but my favourite bass lure is, get it there you, is that. Now this is a very clever lure indeed. This is exceptionally heavy. That's moulded lead. The hook comes out the top, the line ties on there, and this is a removable rubber worm. So you can take that off, put a jelly worm of your choice on there. This particular pattern's caught me a few fish, but you can get a twin toe, you can get various colours. But the great thing with this is, because it's so heavy, it casts miles. Gotcha. And you can, because the hook comes off the top, you can bounce it along the bottom if you're fishing on sandy surface or over sort of lightly rough ground. If you want to really rip it back shallow, you can do, because of the shape. And because of the line ties on here, it swims in that sort of position. And it really does look the business through the water. I've caught not only fish in this country, I've caught a lot of fish in the States using that. I've caught some great grouper
peculiar,
on it. Well, it does.
But I bet you it works quite well.
Well, it's called the Bass Assassin, and it does assassinate a few bass. Comes in a variety of colours, and I say you can choose the tail of your choice. A red gill, for example, you can fish it much slower with a red gill. But it's I just think that we've got such a great chance this weekend without the brilliant bright sunshine, without the flat calm, the doldrums you can sometimes get this time of year. Where are you going to be out this season, Ray? This weekend?
Probably I'll have a trip down the Stour.
Will you?
Yeah. I haven't fished that, that often. I mainly fish the Avon that, but maybe Throop and have a look around there for a little while,
Well, I've got to say, I went down there a couple of years ago. I wanted to catch a personal best chub, and they were catching these big chub. And much as I enjoy catching fish using big fish tactics, I also like to go back to my match fishing routes and trot down, and I fished a stick float just above the stone weir at Throop. A long run down there, and I fished for 3 hours, threw bait in for 3 hours, and eventually I had a bite, and it was £6.11, like on match tactics on a 14-foot rod, 2.6 hook main line, 1.1 hook length, and 1.7 hook length, and a size 20 hook, 2 maggots. It was just an outstanding fish.
Amazing.
You roll the meat down there, do you?
You can do, yeah, if you find the right areas. Normally when it goes a bit low, it's a bit more sluggish. But generally, if you've got a good flow on there, anywhere around, the cobble weirs or, up the top weir, anywhere you've got flow, and over gravels, clean gravels with some nice weed.
Is that what you'll be looking for?
Oh, yeah.
You definitely got to have the flow this time of year.
If it's gin clear, then you actually stalk them as well. If the flow isn't there, then you go looking for the fish. You don't wait for the fish to come to you. You go looking for them. And it's so exciting when you see them. You can learn a lot of the time why you don't catch.
Oh yeah.
By experimenting and putting your bait down, and you experiment with different types of rigs, etc.
Because Guy and Stuart have done those fascinating underwater videos, and if you watch those and take it too much to heart, you'd never go fishing again, would you? Because you think they're impossible to catch.
That video is supersedes even the first one and two.
The new one they've just finished.
It's absolutely amazing. And they deserve a lot of credit for doing that.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic.
Have you ever been tempted to go and fish any of the northern rivers, like the Yorkshire rivers, which have got some wonderful barbel fishing? They're as tough as old boots to fish.
Yeah. Really, no. The furthest I've ever been is the Wye, I think, up that way.
Yeah.
I'll fish the Severn, on the odd occasion, but not really. I mean, Trent might be a different ball game, if you know what I mean. A
very different river to fish. It's much bigger, much heavier.
I'd still roll
water.
it though.
Would you really?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I went on the Severn, it was 12 foot deep, and that was still caught. It's the same sort of principle. If you can, keep the bait moving and that, a lot, especially if the fish don't expect it. Then you'll clean up on them.
The main thing with it, Ray, is confidence, and that's a great thing. You've got it, and I know you're able to pass it on to other people. Right, we're going to take another break now. We'll be back soon with a rather different style of fishing. Fiona Armstrong got an invitation to try a hand at fly fishing for pike on one of the most picturesque locations in the country, Derwent Water in the Lake District. That's coming next. Yeah,